James Rosen, great to have you with us today. Thank you for that. And let's bring in our next guest. Pleased to have CPAC Chairman Matt Schlapp. He was the Deputy Assistant and Political Director for former President George W. Bush, reacting to the messaging from the administration, and also national security expert, Chairwoman of Act for America, Brigitte Gabriel. She's also a survivor of the Lebanese war. She spent 7 years living in an underground bomb shelter. Brigitte, I'll start with you. Obviously, there's an uptick in what's happening right now in Lebanon, but the broader picture too. And when you see tankers exploding, and the Strait of Hormuz is the leverage Iran still has in this war, despite all the success in the military. Talk to us about how you believe this may be moving forward, because we still haven't seen Mushtaba Khamenei. This is just a statement being read. Is there still a lot of back-channeling, fracturing with the IRGC that our military and the IDF can work to weaken what their status is, and then, in turn, their ability to play things out like we're seeing in the Strait?
They are fracturing as we speak, and this is coming from the Israeli intelligence. That's exactly why Netanyahu yesterday said in his speech, telling the Iranians that the time is near, because they are going after the besieged, they're targeting the besieged. So not only they are already eliminated the leadership few layers down, and we don't even know if Mustafa, the new guy, is even alive. I mean, you cannot trust anything coming out of the Iranians. Right. They are lying, they are flailing, they are on their last breath. They are using up whatever weaponry they have left. They're not producing any new missiles. They're just going through their stockpile, and they only can go through that for so long. You know, there's going to come a point where they're going to run out of it. Right now, they are resorting to attacking our ships in the Strait of Hormuz from their little towns. And that's where the challenge comes, because we cannot send some of our bigger ships to go escort the tankers through the Straits of Hormuz, because it is very small. You can't fit both of them. And this is where the Iranians are launching those little bombs at the ships from their little islands, from their little towns where the ports are. But we are working on that, and we are going to overcome that. It's just going to take a few days.
All right, I'm going to get to you on the Gulf nations in just a moment. But, Matt, bringing it here at home, what we do know is credible. The FBI warning police in California about unmanned drones coming in off the coast. And now this video has been issued by the FBI. I'll play this.
Research shows that someone is much less likely to become a shooter if someone notices these signs and tells someone. We can all be heroes simply by noticing behavior changes.
That's obviously something that Americans will hear, and security ramping up in California at the Oscars. Gavin Newsom, in a message, you know, in a way downplaying it. But the FBI obviously thought well enough about it to put that video out. How much does that trouble you about sleeper cells here in our homeland and the possibility for attacks?
Look, I think we all have to remember when Joe Biden opened up the southern border, a lot of people were worried that people were coming from South America and Central America, cheap labor, cartels. There's another part of that, and Brigitte knows this well, but a lot of terrorists came into our country, a lot of people from China, a lot of people from the Middle East who would like to destroy this country. And so we have millions of people walking around this country. We don't even know the number, and we don't even know who they are. So I think it's a very serious threat. I have great confidence in the Trump administration and Kash Patel at the FBI. I do care about the Oscars, but I care more about CPAC, which is coming up in just 2 weeks. And we're obviously taking significant precautions and working with federal authorities and local authorities to make sure people are safe. And look, I have 5 kids, one of whom works here in Washington, D.C., and we all need to take precautions. Remember 25 years ago when we said, see something, say something. If you see something that's out of the ordinary, if you see something weird, tell the authorities. If you see a cop, like I saw on the street the other day.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying, if you see a cop or federal officials, thank them for what they're doing. They're going to keep us all safe.
Right. Well, that's a great point. I mean, we saw an officer in New York jumping over a fence as IEDs with 2 radicalized young men who said they were doing this in allegiance to ISIS. So it is happening. I want to talk a little bit more about the reaction from the Gulf states. Brigitte, you kind of started to go there, and just to drill down on it. they haven't really entered into any of this. You've got indiscriminate, retaliation from Iran into, Doha at the Dubai airport, but this is obviously coming to a pressure point. You had at the UN the condemnation from 135 co-sponsors. So we know Iran is weak and isolated, but we also don't know if there is a moment where, they're looking at their nations, they're looking at sort of how this war goes and the fear that they didn't want this to escalate. And this was some of the stuff that's coming home to them. They're not used to seeing rockets flying over, the Dubai skyline. What would you be looking for from the Gulf states in the coming days? Because they need to stay strong as well with the U.S. and Israel. And that's what Iran is trying to hopefully count on them not to do.
Well, the silver lining coming out of this war with Iran is actually it brought the world body together. Who would have thought that the Arabic states, all of them, the Sunni states, Iran is pretty much isolated. So you've got the Arabic states coming together and even OPEC, 32 countries around the world saying, we're all going to dip into our emergency petroleum reserve and we're all going to pitch in, making sure that we're not going to have a global oil prices. You are seeing the West working with the East. You're seeing America and Israel working with the Arabic nations and the Gulf states against a shared enemy, which is a great step in the right direction, because once you can survive a war together and fight a war together, the next step is going to be talking peace together and moving with peace with Israel and bringing peace to the region.
Yeah, and we pray for that with the rebuilding of Gaza. Matt, finally, on the messaging, because you're so clued into, obviously how this matters as there are maybe a few more weeks of instability. We see gas prices at $8 in California. In Kentucky, where President Trump was yesterday, their gas prices have really rose. He was alongside Jake Paul and, put out some positive messages. Mike Carter on the ground spoke to people in Kentucky who said, listen, we're with the president. We know that this is greater good for the world, as Brigitte just laid out. But we also have a meeting today with Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt, who President Trump has called a rhino, and he'll sit down and talk about who's going to replace Markwayne Mullin at DHS. So all of these domestic issues, in addition to the war fight President Trump is looking at. One of the names being floated is Harold Hamm. Obviously, pretty huge guy in the oil industry and billionaire, and could be an interesting replacement. What do you say about the messaging, and also who is the next replacement for Markwayne Mullin?
Well, I like Governor Stitt, and he hasn't told me who he's picking. I think it's good he's going to share his thinking with President Trump. Look, the fact is who enters the United States Senate from this point forward is incredibly important. We have this primary, this runoff in Texas to determine who the Republican nominee would be. That's incredibly important. We have a lot of well-meaning senators that have fossilized. They become inert. They sit in place. They think about going to their hideaway to take a nap. And they don't understand that civilization is on the verge of crumbling all around us. Donald Trump is taking these heroic steps. And so I would say from a political standpoint, MAGA loves what President Trump is doing, but underneath that, they're worried. They're concerned that we're not making as much progress in the Congress as they want to make. They're worried about the economy. They are worried about prices. And we have this all-important election coming up. And if we don't hold the majorities in the House or the Senate, you can kiss the Supreme Court goodbye, or you could see a lot of impeachment. So I, for one, am going to do everything I can to win in as many of these districts as we possibly can and hold this coalition together.
And that's why President Trump is also saying we've got to get the SAVE Act through. Matt Schlapp, Brigitte Gabriel, great perspective. Thank you so much. Always good to have you for the analysis on these big, fast-moving stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.